Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Let's Talk. And today, this morning, I'm not used to doing these early interviews, but this morning I have Unathi Kwaza. You can see Kwaza. Sorry, you can see her on the right there. Hello, Unathi. How are you?
Hi, all right. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. So this is actually the first time I am having a conversation with Anati face to face or virtually face to face. I'm a huge fan of Anati. She's a businesswoman. She's also a founder of the ZACP party, and she is a very strong and opinionated woman, if I can say that. She's been trending on Twitter a few times over the lockdown and has been recently on the So What episode, or What Now episode of ENCA with Gareth Cliff. A very good episode. You must go check it out, talking about education and the current situation we are in about COVID. Unati, first question, and I think I'm going to get straight into it. As you noticed, I had a topic of this conversation. I said Unati for president. Do you have any aspirations to become president?
Yes, why not? I mean, I think I could do a better job than the ANC, than Cyril Ramaphosa, and definitely Jacob Zuma. So what's the worst that could happen?
Fantastic. I'm sure it makes you excited to know that the electoral, what's it, the electoral const- part of the constitution has been changed so that an individual can run for president in this country. So is that something you're going to pursue maybe in the next 2 years, 4 years?
Uh, Definitely, we're talking about it at ZACP, and I mean, I think when last year when we launched ZACP. The idea was that more than electing someone because you like them, we
Mm.
actually need to have a serious look at the policies that the ANC has adopted for us since 2007. If anyone remembers, I mean, I'm 42, so I remember. I may not have voted for the first elections because I was 16, but it took me a while to actually get into voting. But when I started looking at our political landscape and our country in general.
Mm.
And if people remember, the ANC did well in the first few years in power until, of course, Jacob Zuma took over, and Jacob Zuma's cronies in the ANC took charge. And all the indications after that went downhill, basically. And that's why now we're talking about soon, we'll be looking at 83% of the GDP being debt to GDP.
Mm.
And so that's a worrying factor because it means that your children and your children's children will continue to be paying this debt that the ANC is piling up. And if think about it in simple terms, if South Africa was a household, a regular household, it would mean that you just left with. I mean, if we went to 83% being having to pay debt on that, it would mean that you're only left with 17%
Mm.
to service the household. And who can live in such? I mean, you'd have to declare yourself bankrupt. You'd have to hand over your powers to your ability to make any decisions that have to do with finances of your household. And it's not different from a country.
Mm.
Who's going to borrow us money?
Mm.
Even the money that we are borrowing currently, we have to pay high interest rates on it.
Yeah.
And it's a worrying situation.
Yes.
And so, if anyone is interested in this country being successful, you have to look at what is an ACP, for instance, offering.
Mm.
Of course, there's always also the DA to consider, but I mean, if you have to look at what they are talking about on Twitter, and the fact that currently they are just basically fighting with themselves,
Mm.
which is something that is actually not good for them as a party. And obviously, the media is fueling some of those nonsense that is
Mm.
happening with the leaders on social media. And I don't know why no one is actually talking to them, because what they're doing is actually alienating potential voters.
Yes.
And I've said it when Musi was in charge, that always be careful of stepping on this nonsense that the media. I mean, they start these race wars, race baiting, and all, and just ignore them, because these are people who will never vote for the DA. And the DA suffered in the last elections and they lost a lot of black people. I think it's a good thing that they lost a lot of black people, because the media has been telling everyone that unless the DA attracts black leaders, then black people will flock to it. It seems to be that black people are smarter than that. Black people will not vote for you just because, especially black people that the DA used to attract when Helen Zille or Tony Leon were in charge of the DA. So it seems to me that those kind of black people don't care that you are black, you are white, you are in charge of the DA. They want to know you as a leader and what kind of a leader you are. And so it's a good thing, actually. It just proves that the media has been wrong all along when they said that all the DA needs is to have a black face as their leader. And Musi was disastrous as far as I'm concerned, as a leader. And so these are lessons that we need to take forward. And we have a lot of political parties in South Africa, but if you sit down and look at what they have to offer, you have EFF, you have ACDP, you have, a whole lot.
Yeah,
Really, it's a long list. But if you look at what they have to offer, they are offering socialism, which is something that the DA has been moving towards, unfortunately. And socialism has never taken anyone to prosperity. So why even, I mean, why even say we'll have something light, light socialism? There's no such a thing. It's not gonna take us anywhere. And yeah. So ZACP, as far as I'm concerned, if we had the money that we want to, I don't think we need a lot. We don't need 1 billion like Cyril Ramaphosa in the ANC. Certainly not. We can do, because all we need is actually to speak to people about the principles that we put forward as a party, which is individual liberty, protection of property rights, the right to defend yourself when you are getting attacked in your property. You have a right to defend yourself. And we have seen how SEPS in South Africa is such a failure. You are on your own, basically. Look at the farmers. They are on their own. Every day we're watching this horror happening, and government is not saying anything. And I always remind people on Twitter that the only role that the state has is to protect people's property and to protect us from, I suppose, attacking each other and all that. But if we were left up to our own devices, we'd just be fine. There was a time that there was no government at all. And so when people say that, oh, we need government for this, we need government for social grants, nonsense. We don't need government for all that. And actually, black people have lived without government assistance before 1994. The only problem that started was when ANC took over. And all of a sudden, black people think we can't, as black people, we think we can't do anything by ourselves. It's nonsense. And I don't know where people get that from, because I remember a time that we did things on ourselves, on our own. And we started businesses. Think of Richard Maponya and Herman Mashaba. Currently Herman Mashaba is like moving towards socialism. And it's unfortunate, because it means that he's moving away from the principles of capitalism, the principle that says I am responsible for my own well-being. I'm responsible for finding food for myself, for finding shelter for myself, and basically for getting and earning an income, so that I have a livelihood. So these are the things that capitalism promotes, and these are the things that the ZACP promotes. And people can do this on their own. People can protect themselves from coronavirus. We don't need the state to tell us what to do. We don't need the state to tell us to wear masks. I mean, we're capable of doing these things on our own. So that's what the ACP basically was all about. Unfortunately, we didn't get to Parliament. I mean, it was a long shot because if you think about it, we were launched very late, and we didn't really have a budget to speak of. But I mean, we can be proud of ourselves because everyone knows what Purple Cow is all about.
Yeah.
Was all about. And we had practical solutions that we're putting on the table that this government that is not interested in removing pit toilets. If you go to our website, you look at all the 10 solutions that we have. We talk of finally removing the pit toilets. No school, no child should still be using a pit toilet in 2020. We talk about how to deal with how to deal with the cash and transit heists. We talk about a whole lot of things. So if people are interested, just go to ZACP, like Capitalist Party of South Africa.org, and you'll see all the things that I talk about. And for me, these are just ways of life. The principles that we talk about. It's not really even about joining a political party. No. Even if you're not a member officially, you can actually live by respecting individual liberty, respecting human rights generally, respecting someone's property, which is something. I mean, theft in South Africa has gone up the roof. Burglaries, politicians are stealing food that is meant for the poor. So these are people that don't respect people's property. They don't respect taxes that we pay because we may be paying over taxes to the government, but it's still our money. They don't have a right to do as they please.
Yeah.
So these are the things that I live by. These are the principles that anyone really, if they want to live a good life, can live by.
Yeah, I think everyone. I'm looking at the comments. Everyone's in agreeing with you, and I think that's why you've gained so much popularity over the past few months because you've been so vocal about these things. You had a video where you said, I don't care about the color of your skin. I'm going to stand for your rights. I think that touched on a lot of people's heartstrings. And speaking about people, I just want to say hi to everyone watching. We have quite a few people watching, so thank you guys so much for tuning in and asking questions. Mr. Punisher, Yolanda, The Brew, Johan, Kyle Green, all the usual suspects, Clarissa. So we have a few questions coming in. I'm going to get to them just now. I want to ask Unathi something that I've been very curious about, and you touched on it in Gareth Cliff's show. But if you don't mind, I've been very curious to know what Khayelitsha has been like during the lockdown since day one. What has it been like? Was there even a lockdown? I mean, were people still going out and doing their normal thing? I know we've seen a lot of it on the news, people saying, "Oh, there wasn't any lockdown," but you're someone who's lived there now. You've experienced the entire lockdown there. Is it just business as usual?
I remember the first day because I had told myself that I'm just going to go out there and see what's happening because it's my township and it's my neighborhood. So I went out to, I first went to a customer in Harare, which is part of Khayelitsha. And when I finished there, I probably stayed for an hour. When I finished there, I walked. I made sure that I'm not going to take any Bolt or Uber or anything. So I walked to the mall, Khayelitsha Mall, and past when you go past when you go to the mall, you go past a spa. There was quite a long queue of people, and even before you get there, there's an informal settlement not far from where I stay. People were just there. People were crying on the streets. People were just going about their business. And walked past Spa. There was a police van just hanging around and not doing anything. And just police just drove by. And people were just standing in the long queue. The only problem was, the only reminder that we are in a lockdown was the long queues at shopping malls. And which were actually stupid as far as I'm concerned because, if you go to Khayelitsha, you know that there are space issues. We don't have big malls. Even the malls that we have, I mean, if people have to stand outside in large numbers, for me, if government says that we should social distance, sure, you can do so much, but because there's space issues, so you just have to stand next to the next person. Otherwise, you'll be on the streets where the cars are, because there's not enough space for people to do that. And if you look at the informal settlements, the way that they are designed, I mean, informal settlements, people just rock up and put shacks wherever they want, and so these shacks tend to be close to each other, which becomes a danger actually when someone is ill, they need an ambulance, or someone is in, maybe there's a fire even. So these shacks are always crammed together. And so how do you tell people to self-isolate? I mean, when we started this whole nonsense of lockdown, we were talking self-isolate. We were talking curbing. What is the curve?
Yeah, flattening the curve. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I
And
just
now we
wanna.
talk about hotspots. Yeah. And
Sorry,
now we're talking about hotspots. Oh, huh?
sorry. I just want to ask a question on what you're talking about now. Um, has Has the townships and like Caliche and stuff like that, I mean, yes, it's impossible to self isolate and all that stuff. But have people been responsible enough to like, sanitize their hands everywhere they go, wear masks and stuff surely they still are wise enough to follow these regulations. I mean, whether you believe in them or not, it's kind of like we have to do it because of what the ANC have made it law now. But I guess what I'm trying to ask is, um, are people still, even in the townships, following the regulations of at least the masks and washing their hands?
Mm. Yes, people are. I don't know. I mean, Kailicha is not. It's just a small number of people. I'll say that. I don't know. Actually, I think we are about 1.5 million population
Wow,
numbers, and
that's a
I
lot of people.
think um, yes, in a very small space. That's why you're seeing a lot of mushrooming of informal settlements in Kailicha. I mean, if you drive from Muizenberg down Baden Powell Drive to the N2, you will see that in the last 5 years, I mean, the fact that the Eastern Cape is still badly run means that people, I mean, naturally, people have to go to where food is because you have to survive.
Mm,
So people have to go to Cape Town for schooling because the schooling, the education, basic education in the Eastern Cape in public schools has really collapsed. If you look at, if you judge by the results that you get from grade one, even, I mean, there was a year not long ago when 30% of grade ones failed. I
mm,
mean, who fails grade one? Of all things, grade one. Who fails grade one? So, and you have matric levels. I mean, when I did matric, I did it in the Eastern Cape, and at that time, parents would actually take their children from Western Cape to the Eastern Cape because there were so many good schools, whether it's public schools or private schools or Catholic schools in the Eastern Cape. But nowadays, you can't do that because it's. I mean, SADTU has literally destroyed education in this
mm,
country, and they are in tripartite alliance with the ANC. And it seems to me that they are systematically ensuring that a majority of people in this country are uneducated. So what? Because what you get when you have a large number of people who are uneducated, you get voters who will depend on the state. And we've had ANC leaders saying that during election campaigning, they've said that, told people that if they stop voting the ANC, the social grants would stop. They would stop receiving social grants, and we know it's a lie.
mm,
I mean, obviously, we can't afford social grants. We can't afford to add any more people to be reliant on the state. That's why we desperately need to grow our economy, because people can work if there is work. It's just that there is no work. You have labor policies that are criminalizing employers who can only afford to pay these people so much.
Mm.
Why can't people negotiate with employers themselves how much they are willing to take? People, if you can trust voters, 18-year-olds to go and vote, and you trust their decision, why can't they decide for themselves? I can take 2,000 rands a month for this kind of job. People should be able to have that power to do that for themselves.
Yes.
But but because of the labor policies in this country, they are unable to do that. We're sitting with 70% of the people who are unemployed being young people.
Yes.
We have 30-year-olds who are graduates who can't find jobs.
Mm.
I mean, if you graduated, let's say at age 20, 23, 22, 23, by the time you're 30, you even forgotten what you studied. If you're lucky, you found a job, working in a hotel, working in a restaurant, and all those things. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just that it breaks someone's spirit to spend all that money studying and to have dreams. But those dreams end up being nothing, because the state refuses to look at policies that can actually bring jobs. Government is not going to create jobs. Government's job is not employment creation. It's to create an environment where businesses can thrive, basically. We need foreign direct investment. We need our small businesses to thrive. We need our medium enterprises to thrive. But it's not going to happen with the kind of policies that we have, policies that only create red tape. And we need, that's why I'm saying to you that it doesn't matter that you are going to vote Herman Mashaba because you like him, but what is Herman Mashaba bringing to the table?
Yes.
How is your life going to change?
Yes.
How is your life going to change when Herman Mashaba is voted into power? And people don't even want to talk about the way that he dealt. I mean, the way he performed as a mayor of Johannesburg. How else are you supposed to judge a person's track record if you cannot look at? I mean, people will say, no, it's because the DA prevented him from doing his job, blah, blah, blah. No, it's nonsense. He has to take responsibility for his actions when he was mayor. The fact that he got close to the EFF and abandoned basically his constituents.
Yes.
In Johannesburg. And people need to judge him by his actions.
Yes. I agree with everything you're saying, and also I think it's important, like you said now, like people need to judge policies. Policies are very, very important. What the person stands for, what the party stands for, and if you're behind those and you fully understand them, then of course cast your vote to whomever. I wanted to ask you, seeing as we were talking about this as well, in Kailicha, when you speak to the everyday person, your customers and stuff like that, what's the vibe in terms of, like, are people also angry with the ANC in your area?
No, unfortunately not. I mean, last year around the election time, before elections, I was taking a bus from Wynberg from Mulberry to Kailicha. And I had a conversation with this old woman who was coming from work. She works as a domestic worker. And I was trying to gauge where her mind was as far as elections are concerned, and who she was going to vote for. And she said that she was going to vote for Mandela. Can you believe it? It was 2019. She's going to vote for a dead person. I mean, that's the.
Well, I'm sure he would appreciate that.
But you know what it is. But you know what it is, though. Think about it. We may laugh at her choice, but some of these people are still domestic workers and they're breadwinners at home. And some employers, unfortunately, don't treat them well. Obviously, not all employers, but there's still that gap between employer and employee, in the sense that you are white, I'm rich, or I'm white, I'm rich. You black, you depend on me with your salary and all that. I mean, I've had the pleasure of using public transport, and it's amazing the conversations that you can listen to. I think if you want to actually get to know people in city, use public transport and get to know people, talk to people. I do that all the time. So one time this woman was going to work, and she was talking about the fact that at her work, she's also a domestic worker. She was talking about the fact that at work, she's given a separate cutlery to what everyone else is using, the dishes. She's got her own plate, her own mug. So everyone's dishes are in the cupboard. Hers are kept next to the sink. So she can't touch anything else unless she's cleaning the stuff.
Yeah.
So we can actually laugh at people's choices of who to vote for, but in some homes and in some workplaces, the way that employers, even if it's just a domestic environment, the way that they treat Black people is still like they look down upon a Black person. For instance, why if that white person came to my house, or why would I need different cutlery for her, and why would I need special why would I keep things separate? It's like there's a virus that I don't want to catch, or bacteria or something, and yet this is a person that you entrust to look after your home when you're there. And some of them, these people have children that these women, these Black women will leave at home to go look after and leave their own kids in townships to fend for themselves. So if you there's an author that I love, Cindy Wemagona. She's an incredible woman, and she's written a lot of books. And I mean, if you read, I think her very first book is entitled "To My Children's Children." She tells of her life story. It's more like a memoir. How she moved from the Eastern Cape to the Western Cape. And at some point, she got married while still young and got pregnant. And the laws of the time said that if a woman is married, then the husband must take care of her. So she can't really look for a job. So she was a teacher at the time, and she ended up having to work as a domestic worker. So she tells, I mean, there's a lot of stories that she writes about of her life as a domestic worker, and she ended up befriending other domestic workers in the area. And so when I read those stories and I listened to these women in the past, in let's say 2019, 2018, I realized that not much has changed in the relations between employers, white employers, and Black workers. So that's why people in Kailicha, for instance, because if you look at who lives in Kailicha, it's mainly someone who's a domestic worker or a petrol attendant. Obviously, I'm not gonna say, I don't know. I think it's really about prejudice more than anything. Some people will say it's racism, but I think it's more of prejudice, because when you haven't taken time to get to know your employee as a human being, relate to them, know who their children, who her children are, or who his children are, and is he married? All those things that make us human, and all those things that make us relate to each other. When you haven't taken the time as an employer to get to know them, then obviously you'll always think less of them, because you don't know them. These are people. I mean, these are human beings like you.
Yes.
They have red blood running through their veins. So it's just that. I mean, you just need to take time to get to know people. I mean, just now I was in Johannesburg. I made sure that every day I'm going to meet some of the people on Twitter that I interact with on Twitter. I do that deliberately because I believe there's a greater world out there than social media. I believe that we can make human connections. For me, I don't see skin color. It doesn't matter to me that where you were born, who your parents are. I'm just interested in the human being. And I know that there's a lot that is common with human beings than what is not common with us, depending obviously where we grew up. I grew up in a township or in a village, in rural areas, or in suburbia.
Yeah.
Those are those are things that could be different in each one of us, but basically we're just the same people. And if we got to know each other better, then we'd have better relations.
Absolutely. I think, that's what the ANC is doing so well at, is creating more and more divide, creating fear from on both sides, which is why we're not, as all of us are not taking the time to get to know one another. And you're absolutely right. It breaks my heart to know that there are stories like that. But
Mm.
I think, like you said, if those people were a little bit more open, a little bit more curious, I mean, then it would be a whole different thing. I mean, I'm very curious about your life. I'm a fan of you, and I would love to have maybe one day, you come over, we bride together, we just sit. And my wife is also a huge fan of yours, by the way, and we just have a discussion. So, I mean, I think I've said this before. I think social media and certain things that the media perpetuates has um, has made us as humans forget how to have human contact with one another. We're so focused
Yeah.
on the wrong things of life. We're so focused on like who's gonna hurt me or whatever, but we don't actually take the time to be like, hold on a second. You're saying that this person wants to hurt me, but I want to know. I want to meet this person. I want to sit down with this person. And have a discussion and say, do you want to hurt me? Do you really want to hurt me, or is this, I want if you do want to hurt me, why? And let's see if we can work something out. We've forgotten how to communicate with one another, I think, and I
You
think
know,
it's yeah,
Joe, in South Africa, we have so much. There's a lot that we can actually take from soapies, even. Who's white and watches Muvango or Generations, for instance. I
mm,
watch, for years, I've watched 70 Lan. I watch just about everything because I'm interested in people. I remember reading Garrett Cloug's book, I think it's a memoir. Uh, and then a friend of mine was asking me, what am I reading? So I showed him what I was reading. And then he made a snide remark
mm,
about it because, as far as he's concerned, it doesn't. For me, it was simple. I'm just interested in people,
yeah,
um,
exactly.
because there's so much that you can't know everything about people. And so where for instance would I find black people? uh, Black people you can find them in soccer stadiums when there's soccer. You can find them in townships. Luckily in Kailicha we have, not now though, which is unfortunate, we have got a number of hangout spots where you can buy your liquor, you buy, and you meet other people, and you just hang out on a Saturday. And we've got a number of those small businesses there. But unfortunately, government doesn't want them to operate currently. And I don't know how those people have been surviving since March. So, I mean, those spaces have grown so much. People leave suburbia to come and hang out. You can talk about Mzoli's but I think they've closed now in Guguletu. You can go to Ace place in Kailicha, and there's so many spaces. Luckily, we have Google now. We
Mm.
have Google Maps and all those things. You can just type, or you can just contact Unathi. Unathi, I want to come to Kailicha. Where can we go? There are restaurants in Kailicha. We can actually buy meat on the street. It's clean. You're not gonna die from eating dried meat for just give me a shout, Unati. I want to hang out in Kailicha or this Saturday or this Sunday. Come, show me around Kailicha. You'll find there are people who do beadwork, who do leather bags and leather shoes. You can just come and just support small businesses, support tourism in townships. And for me, if you want to make a difference in someone's life, you just have to support what they are doing. Don't
Exactly.
give handouts. I'm totally against handouts.
Mm.
Just support what the person is doing. That's why I will retweet a small business. The only small businesses, though, that I don't retweet on Twitter are those that say that support a black child or something like that. No, I refuse to, because um, I ask people, why do you? I mean, I've been in business since 2009. I ask people, black people, why would you limit yourself to only talking to black people?
Mm.
Because there are a lot of, I mean, if you go to Foschini or Edgar's or ShopRite, no one cares if you're black or white or checkers. No one cares about that, because money is money.
Mm.
It doesn't matter where it comes from.
Exactly.
Hopefully you haven't stolen. Hopefully you haven't stolen it.
Well, I'm definitely gonna take you up on that offer to come visit Kalisha. We can go and have a cup of coffee somewhere, and you can show me around. I'm very, very curious and very, very interested. I love learning about cultures, and as you know, I used to stay in Egypt, and since then I've learned, like to how to respect cultures and also learn from them. I think cultures are what makes human beings so interesting. Tradition and different way people do things doesn't mean that it's right or wrong. Your culture is your culture, and I believe everyone should embrace their culture and love their culture and try and keep it alive as much as possible. Okay, so I'm going to get to some of the questions here that people are very interested to know. So the first one is Evan Brighton wants to know from you. Um, what is your opinion on Cape Independence?
Mm, okay, so at first, I was opposed to it because I suppose I took it from the fact that already in the Western Cape, we because we vote DA, most of us, we sort of treated differently as a province. It's like we are pariahs in South Africa.
Mm,
So at first I didn't want to encourage that spirit. But now looking at, I think it's unfair that we do so much work. I mean, look at Tim Harris, the work that he does for Westgrow, the flights, the direct flights that he's managed to get for us, in growing Western Cape's economy. And we have to take all this money to a government that doesn't deserve it, a government that is going to steal it. Um, I mean, goodness, what more can we do as a province?
mm,
Look at the trains; they're in shambles. If the Western look at Robben Island, it's losing a lot of tourists because of the shambles. I mean, it can be a peak of the season of tourism of summer, and we'll be told that there are no boats
mm,
that are working. What nonsense is that? I mean, these are things that you do maintenance so that when the time comes for you to be busy, you won't cut out hours and lose money in the process. So there's so much agriculture. I mean, there's a lot of things that policing. There's a lot of things that are holding us back because we are part of South Africa. We are part of national. I mean, we may vote DA, but ultimately we do things that the ANC wants
mhm.
because we have a centralist system.
Yeah.
So that's why now I know that it's not going to happen though, because I think the ANC would first, because remember we have a demarcation board, and these are ANC people basically, and they can decide tomorrow that the Western Cape must join the Eastern Cape, for instance.
Mm.
We have no say basically in who we vote for. Yes, we vote the DA, most of us, or Freedom Front Plus. I'm even tempted to vote Freedom Front Plus. Can you believe it?
Yeah, they are looking more and more appealing by the day, aren't they?
Absolutely, because if every forum had a party, I would definitely join them.
If
Because
yeah.
now I'm past the stage where I look at someone's skin color, because
Mm.
I see the work that they do. I mean, Martin Luther King said it well when he said that. he had a dream that people would. He had a dream that he would not be judged by the color of his skin, but by the content of his character.
Yeah.
Why are woke people so against being judged by the content of their character? The fact that corruption in South Africa has been allowed to continue for so long is because we don't judge people by the content of their character. We vote thugs basically in power. Look at Parliament. There's a lot of thugs in Parliament who should actually be in jail. But because we vote people based on the color of their skin. You look at this one is black, so he has my interest at heart. The fact that we are talking about children who in 2020 who drown in human fishes means that that black person doesn't have your interest in their heart. So why do you keep voting for such people who don't have respect for human lives? Life as a Dimeni is another example. Collins Khoza is another example. Marikana Massacre, no one was brought to book, and yet we're saying that Black Lives Matter. What nonsense is that? I mean, it was laughable, really.
Sorry, that reminds me. I actually wanted to ask you about that. What is your opinion on Americana? Do you think Cyril did it? Do you think Cyril was behind it, or in some way?
Oh, he was not behind it, but if you read the email that I mean, I don't know if you were in South Africa at that time, but it was in 2012. You were here already. Okay. So let's try and look back, because sometimes we forget these things. Let's take a step back and look at what was happening. Remember that the miners were protesting as they should, because they were paying a pittance, really.
Yes.
And yet the mines were doing well. And I mean, we cannot run away from it. It's unfortunate that so many black men will still have. I mean, their only choice in life is working in the mine. Under such, it's not like Australia, where you can find people who are earning a good income while working in the mines, because the mines are doing, when a company is doing well, you should see it from your employees that because it's the fruit of their labor, basically. Yes. And companies should also start improving skills of their workers, because if someone started in 1970 working in a mine, and they're still doing the same thing that they were doing, I mean, goodness, it's not. I think it's just not humane. It's just not humane enough to just give them the pittance that they've been getting. So if we take a step back and look at what was happening at the time, when Ria Pierre decided that the police must use live bullets on striking miners. Sure, the miners people will bring the fact that miners themselves were violent, and they were killing actually each other, and they were killing police, security, and all that. But I feel that when Cyril Ramaphosa talked about concomitant action that must be taken by the police, what do you mean by that? I mean, there's no other way of explaining it as far as I'm concerned. You mean that police must act, and the language that politicians were using at the time. Your Unathi Kwaza was your Susan Shabangu. Susan Shabangu was the Minister of Minerals at the time, Energy and Minerals. Unathi Kwaza was Police Minister. Ria Pierre was Police Commissioner, and Ria Pierre was the only person, in a way, who lost her job. But I heard just last year that she has a project that she's actually working with a police union pop crew, and they are working in schools, talking about safety and all that. And it shocked me when I heard that, because this is a woman who is responsible, basically. I mean, the next day of the Marikana massacre, there was a video that was taken of Ria Pierre thanking the police of the work that they did. I mean, who does that? This government has blood on its hands.
Yeah.
So Ramaphosa should never have been, if ANC was for black people, Cyril Ramaphosa should never have been a president. And Unathi Kwaza should not be in cabinet as we speak. Susan Shabangu should not be in cabinet. in cabinet, and a whole lot of people got away with murder, literally.
Yes.
And it's a shame.
Yeah.
And if I had any powers to go to the ICC, International Criminal Court, I would actually go there and approach them because a crime was committed. Life as it remains the same thing. Cyril Ramaphosa was campaigning and telling when journalists asked about Qedani Mahlangu, who was a part of his march, he said that Qedani Mahlangu is also human. I mean, goodness, who says that? Who says that Qedani Mahlangu should have been brought to book with her cronies?
Yeah.
Oh goodness, the ANC has killed so many black
But
people,
we've
more than the African.
Yeah, we've seen this time and time again. It's happening now with Zuma. It just keeps on being pushed back, and doctor's notes and stuff like that. Even though, he's definitely guilty. And I saw something very interesting because I was doing a bit of research with the Americana massacre and the police. What's the lady's name that was head of the police at that time?
Yeah,
She was saying, yeah, she was saying when she was being interrogated about what happened, she kept on being like, and even though this was like the next day, she was like, oh, I don't remember. They asked her something like, oh, did this meeting happen at certain time, blah, blah, blah. Who was there? And she was like, I don't remember. And then the guy says, but it was yesterday. She's like, I don't remember. And you see Zuma doing the exact same thing. I don't remember. The SARS lady, the IT head of SARS, when she was interrogated, I don't remember. They all use that same kind of I don't remember because that's kind of a loophole in our system, and that needs to be looked at. But yeah, we see it time and time again. These um, thugs, as you mentioned, just keep on getting away with murder. You're right. There's blood on their hands, and
and people are voting for them. Middle class people in South Africa are still voting the ANC,
yeah,
and you'll hear Justice Malala chastising the DA for nonsense, really.
exactly.
And yesterday, he tweeted about the shambles that the healthcare sector in the Eastern Cape is. I asked him, obviously, he's not going to respond to me. I asked him why is he shocked because he's been calling the DA racist. The DA could easily fix the Eastern Cape. You saw
Mm,
what they managed to achieve within a short space of time in the Nelson Mandela Bay area.
mm,
And unfortunately, the EFF thugs and ANC and APC and all those people, they gathered together to ensure the status quo remained.
mm,
And I hope that the people of Nelson Mandela Bay will teach them a lesson next year.
yes.
Because at the end of the day, when a healthcare system is in shambles, it means that if you don't have a medical aid, if you can't afford a medical aid, you are basically you can go to a government hospital and just go to die there instead of getting medical help.
Yeah.
I mean, so these are the people that you vote for because they're black. But ask yourself, at what cost to your family? At what cost to your children's future? At what cost to you?
Yeah.
Because if you don't have a job, if the economy is not growing, if you don't have food, I mean, I'm still busy with the food fundraising.
Mm,
These are people who lost jobs, basically, and because of the lockdown, it's been hard on people. I get shocked every time I hear on what day we are at. We're probably on day 90 today. I don't know. I lost count.
yeah. Me too.
But mm, think about 3 months without earning a salary. What does that do to you as a human being?
Yeah.
Wouldn't you kill yourself? You get depressed. Your mental health is jeopardized. And politicians still get their salaries. They talk nonsense on television and they don't care about the consequences of the actions that they're taking.
Mm.
And they're making all of us sick, really, and poor
Well, that's
every day.
yeah. That's
Mm.
also something that kind of annoys me. Like when President Cyril said, "Oh, we're all gonna take a bit of a pay cut." I think he said like 30% or I can't remember what he said, but he said we were gonna take a bit of a pay cut.
It's 30%.
Yeah, I
But it's
was.
30 what of like millions,
Yeah,
really.
because like,
Mm.
and people always give me a hard time about Trump. But say what you will about Trump, love him or hate him, he hasn't taken salary from for his when he's been presidency. He's been
Absolutely.
donating it to certain parts of the government, and that's without a pandemic around. He just did that from day one. So I mean, like what you said about Martin Luther King, judge me by my character. People are not judging Cyril harshly enough, I think.
Mm.
And let's be
The
honest.
media is, yeah. It's
Yeah.
the media that's, I mean, the media in South Africa decided to be in his pocket. I don't
Mm,
know if he pays for them or I mean, he's got billions now thanks to BEE. Who's never worked a day in his life,
mm,
and he was just handed shares in these mining magnate companies.
yes.
And or your MTNs, all these big conglomerates. The reason why they have been silent, have been silenced really during this lockdown and not challenging the ANC's unconstitutional behavior is because they know they rely on government handouts really,
Mm,
government favors. They buy politicians' houses, they buy politicians' children. I mean, look at Busasa and 500,000 bribe to Cyril Ramaphosa's son, and he lied about it in Parliament.
mm,
The media just ignored. I mean, the media doesn't even want to go there deep. The media is still not digging deep into who really stole from VBS. They are telling us about the EFF. The EFF only got about 16 million, but we know that 1 point something billion was stolen
mm,
from Black people's money, really, who were
yes.
working very hard to. I mean, I remember a story that I had. Someone was talking on SAFM who was one of the victims of VBS Bank. She had saved money because she didn't have medical aid, so it came to a point where she needed to do an operation. I don't know if she had sugar diabetes or something, but she needed that money. She couldn't do it. She had to rely now on the state because a politician wanted to buy Dolce and Gabbana. A politician wanted to buy a red Louis Vuitton shoes. I mean, these are vulgar people. These are just, I mean, think about it. You steal someone's hard-earned savings, life savings, to go and buy a nice house, nice shoes. What kind of people are these? These are people who don't have shame, really. These are
Mm,
people who don't feel anything for another human being. These are people you vote for, South Africans. You vote Malema. You vote for. I mean, the vendor king got some of the money, which means that he's stealing from his own people. I
mm,
mean, goodness, I think the worst people get to the top of these government positions, and the worst people get to the top to make decisions for good natured South Africans. Because if you think about someone who is in Limpopo, who's been saving money, maybe since the 80s when VBS started as a mutual bank, it took politicians to just steal everything. Some of the money was stolen from municipalities in Gauteng. Mfuleni is one of the most struggling municipalities that has been badly run by the ANC in Gauteng.
mm,
And at some point, the sewage was coming from a Val Dam to contaminate their water that they're supposed to drink. And there was no money to fix that because water and sanitation had been crippled really by Nomvula Mokonyane and her cronies.
mm,
Nomvula Mokonyane is still highly regarded in the ANC. It was her birthday yesterday, and they were congratulating her. She should be in jail for stealing money with his people. And it's not going to happen because even the NPA is reluctant to prosecute these cronies. I mean, why is Jacob Zuma still? Why is Jacob Zuma's trial still being dragged? It's been 10 years since the DA tried to get him to court. He's still not in court. That's why I believe that our justice system is also corrupted.
yeah.
And that, I mean, if you think of the process that happens when someone becomes a Judge John Shopper, it's been 10 years, 11 years. They're still not doing anything about the serious case that he faced. He's got another case now. He's accused of having assaulted his colleague in chambers. These are serious crimes,
Yes.
if you think about it. And this is a man who is a judge. This is a man in the Western Cape who is a chief judge in the Western Cape. A lot of people's fate is in his hands. And we're supposed to trust such people, but we can't because he's got a dark cloud hanging over him. The same way that when came to power, he had a dark cloud hanging over him. And we stupidly thought, because the media hated Thabo Mbeki so much, that anyone would do after Thabo Mbeki.
Yeah, but
And we knew Jacob Zuma.
Sorry, Tebo Mbeki, I was doing research on him recently, and I noticed that during his presidency, the unemployment rate went down quite a lot. And then the moment
Absolutely.
Zuma took over, it went right back up again. So it's, it's really shocking to me that the media
And
and people didn't like him.
that's why yes, that's why the media, I don't understand them.
Yeah.
I mean, they were part. I mean, think of Rajeni Munsami. She
Mm.
was part of Jacob Zuma's people who were promoting Jacob Zuma, and this is a journalist who we are supposed to respect. And I was not shocked when I heard that she had been bought really by some of Zuma's people. I mean, you are a journalist and you want to drive a fast car and you can't save enough money because they say journalism doesn't pay. It doesn't pay if you're lazy. You have to work your butt off to get gigs, to write, to do all those things. There's a lot of things you can do if you're a trained journalist, if you're smart enough. You don't have to be bought by politicians. You
Mm.
don't have to become. I mean, I wonder now, since journalists are so quiet, who is being bought by the ANC this time around? Because it's so rare that journalists can talk about free speech and media freedom, but they are not exercising that freedom that they talk about so much,
Well,
and
look at
you just wonder behind what's happening.
Yeah, well, look at what they did to ENCA. Those anchors who, after the when Cyril said, "Oh, cigarettes will be on sale," and then NDZ came on and said, "No, they're not." The next day, ENCA actually told the truth. They reported the truth, and then guess what? They were sacked. So they made an example out of these anchors, and I think
Mm.
that's why a lot of people are, or a lot of journalists, maybe not all of them, but some of them are hesitant to
But then,
say the
but
truth.
then, but then, why do they remain? Why do they remain journalists? Because now it means you are compromised, highly compromised, and you're no longer gonna be serving your purpose as a journalist if you can't speak truth to
Mm.
power,
Yeah.
if you can't make sure that you are there for the people really.
Hmm.
I mean, I cannot. I'm just grateful that we now have alternative media
Yes.
in the form of Politics Web, Morning Slots, Gareth Cliff's shows, the Burning Platform, your Men Patria, and your Robert, who's the guy in Port Elizabeth, who's a
Uh,
DA councillor.
oh,
Mm, I,
Ronaldo.
yes.
Yes.
So those people are the voices that we're not gonna hear on mainstream media. That's why I always tell people support these small guys because at least they're giving you something you'll never hear from. I mean, do you think the SABC would ever interview me and have a conversation with me? They won't
I
because
think
I'm a
they
threat.
should. I would love to see you go up against that journalist that was interviewing John Steenhuisen, the one that was
Oh
like,
my
"Where's
gosh,
your list?"
Lawrence.
I would love to see that. I would love to see the two of you talking. That would be amazing.
Or ABC. Yes. I mean, look at Prime Media. 702 is no longer the same. I'm
Yeah.
just glad he's just gone.
Yeah.
But it took them too long to do something about him. I'm not
Yes.
saying he doesn't have a right to free speech, but to incite such hatred against white people is wrong.
Yes.
And every South African in this country should speak out against that
Yes.
because white people are human too. Uh, I mean, white people in this country are so in such a minority that really they're not a threat. And FW de Klerk uh, will get people so worked up
Mm.
with what he says, but he's not a threat. He doesn't have any powers.
Mm.
He's a former president, so it doesn't matter to me what he says. Helen Zille, how is Helen Zille a threat to you as a black person? I mean, unless it's getting so ridiculous.
No, it
So
is.
that's why I'm saying people should actually support the smaller guys who are coming up, because it's not. I mean, you can't make that much money on YouTube. So that's why I like to share. I like to spread the word. When I hear something that I like
Mm.
from all these new podcasts that are coming through, and I subscribe to some of them, and I will even pay my money for it,
Mm.
because that's value for money. I don't watch news on DSTV. I don't have DSTV. I don't watch SABC News. I mean, because there's been so much corona, I even stay away from radio news. I stay away from talk radio basically because it's been so it's been made toxic. You have to be against white people if you want a job as a talk radio host in this country, and it's so ridiculous. It deprives listeners of information, good information that could actually help someone out there.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's why I enjoy what's Gareth Cliff, what's it, Cliff Central, because he swears on there, and like whether you love or hate him, like I know there's a big divide when it comes to Gareth Cliff, and that's fine, but he does have
It's
balanced
ridiculous.
conversations. He has very balanced
Absolutely.
conversations, and that's what we need right now, And I enjoyed, like I said before, I enjoyed that debate you had on his show now on ENCA because again, it's balanced. He has people from both sides talking and saying interesting things, and that's what we need, the battle of ideas. So we've hit the hour. It went by very quickly. So as I promised, we just do an hour on this show. If you don't mind, one more question very quickly because the Brew asked this and he asked it a while ago. All he wanted to know is what are your thoughts on the 500 Rand grant? ANC, his opinion is ANC is buying votes again, basically. Do you agree with that? Yes or no?
Absolutely. For starters, we don't have money. People haven't received the 350. So you think that there's money to pay 500 rands. It's just it's cruel as far as I'm concerned because you're creating hope. I mean, in Khayelitsha, I see the longest queues at SASSA offices. Those are people, some of them will sleep there. They're not going to get the 350 because when Ramaphosa promised, it's not different from when Jacob Zuma promised free education. He knew exactly that there was no money for it, but he creates this hope because when young people are angry, start getting angry, they destroy things. They will say that it's white people who caused them to be in hardship, but it's not white people. I mean, when Cyril Ramaphosa talks nonsense, recently talked about white people being racist and all that is dangerous. It's very dangerous. It's inciting violence. It's creating a divide between people. So such a person should not be a leader. Such a person should not be in a position of power. And as far as I'm concerned, the ANC right now is the biggest racist organization in the country. And people don't see that.
Yeah. At this time, people need a leader that's going to unify a country, not divide it. So it's very sad to see that. So Unathi, again, I don't want to keep you for too long. I know you're a very busy lady, and I want to thank you so much for being on my show. I've been, like I told you on Twitter, I'm a huge fan, and I hope that you will come back because there's so much more I would like to talk to you about and give you another platform where you can voice your opinions and stuff like that. The chats were going crazy. Too much for me to mention. But thank you guys so much for tuning in. Laura Frey, Teresa, Yolanda, Dan Verkman, and Kyle Green, and the list goes on. Eleutheria, please subscribe to Eleutheria, guys. She says, "Nice cup, Joe." She recommended the cup. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Unathi, do you want to say anything to our listeners? And as I sign off, don't hang up. I'll give you a proper goodbye on Skype for like 2 minutes. But is there anything that you want to say to our listeners before we say goodbye?
You can't change the whole world, but if you're in a position to make a difference in just one person's life, do that. If someone needs a helping hand, some people just want to give you a CV. Some people just want a food parcel for the week, for the month. If you're in a position to do that, do that. You won't. I help people with food vouchers. I started a Beke Body campaign. People are so grateful for even 500 rands worth of food. If you know the prices of food today, it's not a lot.
Yeah.
So, position to change just one person's life, do that, and you'll be blessed, and you'll see great things happen in your life.
One act of random kindness at a time. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been Unathi Kwaza. Like I said, Unathi, stay on the line. Thank you all so much for tuning in. I'll be back later tonight at 8:30 p.m. I will be interviewing Manpatria. Dumo will be on my show. We're going to talk about his show. We're going to talk about him. We're going to get to know him a little bit more. So please join me at 8:30 p.m. tonight. This has been Unathi Kwaza. Thank you again, once again, for tuning in. And for the rest of you, thank you so much for watching, and enjoy the rest of your Monday. If I don't see you later, then I'll see you at the next one. Good day.